The feeling of being watched intensified, even in a room full of strangers. A tiny mistake, a small stumble in your step, suddenly felt like a catastrophic failure. A spotlight you can't see is now shining directly on you. Everyone must have noticed. This powerful illusion has a name. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect, but we can think of it as the acorn effect. It's the tendency to believe that a tiny acorn, a small personal flaw or mistake, is a giant, unmissable oak tree in the minds of everyone else. We wildly overestimate how much attention people are paying to us. The consequence of this mental glitch is a heavy weight on our potential. It pushes us to play it safe. We hesitate to speak up in meetings. We avoid trying new things where we might look foolish. The fear of that imaginary spotlight keeps us trapped in a smaller version of our lives. Now, let's zoom in to a specific moment. Picture yourself at a dinner with friends. You accidentally spill a little water on the table. Inside your head, alarm bells are ringing. You feel your face get hot, certain that this clumsy act is now the main topic of everyone's inner thoughts. But the reality is far different. The person across from you is worried about a work email they forgot to send. The person next to you is thinking about the movie they want to watch later. They are the stars of their own movie. Your small spill is, at most, a forgotten scene that never even made the final cut. This isn't just a personal feeling, it shapes our social world. Think about walking into a busy coffee shop alone. For a split second, it can feel like every conversation stopped, that every pair of eyes turned to watch you find a table. This is the acorn effect, creating a social reality that doesn't actually exist. This false reality pressures us to conform. We dress not just for ourselves, but for the imagined judgment of others. We temper our opinions to fit what we think the group wants to hear. The invisible audience dictates our behavior, often silencing our most authentic selves. This experience is a universal part of being human. A teenager with a single pimple feels like it's a glowing beacon on their face, visible from space. They navigate their school day convinced that this tiny imperfection is the only thing anyone sees when they look at them. This feeling is a leftover piece of ancient survival programming. Our ancestors lived in small, interdependent tribes where social standing was everything. Being noticed for the wrong reasons could mean exile, which was often a death sentence. Your brain is still wired to be hyper-aware of social judgment. Today, that old wiring misfires in our modern world. The tribe is now a city full of strangers or a social media feed of acquaintances. The stakes are infinitely lower, but the deep-seated fear of being negatively noticed remains just as strong. That ancient alarm system is still on high alert. This internal spotlight doesn't just feel real. It triggers a primal part of the brain. The part designed for survival in a small tribe, where social judgment could mean exile. Your mind treats a casual glance from a stranger in a coffee shop with the same weight as a tribal elder's disapproval. It's an ancient alarm system, now ringing for every tiny modern event. This system isn't broken. It's just working with outdated information. It thinks you still live in a village of 150 people, where your reputation is everything. It hasn't adapted to a world of billions, where most social interactions are fleeting and forgotten almost instantly. The hardware is ancient, but the software is running in a completely new world. The direct result is a quiet retreat from life. We avoid asking a stupid question in a lecture. We don't wear the bright color that makes us happy. We hesitate to share a new idea at work. The acorn effect builds a cage not with steel bars, but with the fear of what other people might think. It shrinks our world to the size of what feels safe. Picture an employee in a brainstorming session. An idea sparks in their mind, a potential solution to a huge problem. But then, the effect kicks in. They see the faces of their colleagues turning to them. They imagine the judgment, the quiet smirks, the dismissal. The idea, once a brilliant spark, is smothered by the imagined weight of a spotlight that was never even turned on. This happens because of a simple mental shortcut called egocentric bias. It's our brain's default setting to assume that other people see the world the same way we do. Since our own mistake or awkward moment is huge and bright in our own mind, we assume it's just as huge and bright in everyone else's. We think our inner world is projected onto a public screen. So, this feeling isn't just about anxiety. It's a flaw in our mental map of reality. We draw ourselves as the massive continent at the center of the world, and everyone else as tiny islands looking at us. The truth is, everyone is the continent on their own map. They are far too busy with their own world to focus on yours. When this bias infects an entire organization, it creates a culture of silence. The most creative people become the quietest. Potential breakthroughs are lost because everyone is waiting for someone else to take the social risk. The company's growth is stunted because every individual acorn is too terrified of the imaginary gaze of the forest. But here is the core truth that shatters the illusion. The attention you fear is almost entirely imaginary. Think about the last time you were in a public place. Can you remember the shoes of the person who walked past you? The hairstyle of the cashier? Their tiny moment of hesitation? Probably not. You were the center of your own world. You can use this to your advantage. Actively notice how little attention you are actually paying to the minor details of strangers around you. You'll find it's almost zero. This is a reality check. It proves the spotlight you feel on you is not coming from the outside. You are holding the lamp. And realizing you hold the lamp is the beginning of freedom. It means you can choose where to point it, or you can choose to put it down entirely. The feeling that everyone is watching you dissolves when you understand they are not. They are busy. And this leaves you wonderfully, beautifully free to be yourself. This internal calculation is not just about logic. It's deeply emotional. The brain connects the feeling of being watched with the risk of social rejection, a primal fear that guided our ancestors. This creates a feedback loop. The more you worry, the more you scan for evidence, and you will always find it. This is where the spotlight effect gets its power. It's a cognitive bias where people tend to believe they are being noticed more than they really are. Your tiny mistake feels like a giant failure under a huge, bright spotlight. But in reality, the audience is mostly in the dark. They are busy with their own lives. The truth is, most people are not paying attention to you. They are the main character in their own movie. They are worrying about the spotlight they imagine is on them. Think of a crowded room. Everyone feels like they are on stage, but no one is actually in the audience. This creates a strange social paradox. We live in a world of performers with no spectators. Each person is so consumed by their own performance, their own anxieties, that they have little mental energy left to judge yours. Your perceived flaws are just a blip on their radar, if they even register at all. So, how do you break this cycle? You can start by deliberately shifting your focus outward. Instead of analyzing your own feelings, become an observer of others. Notice the person who seems nervous. Listen to the conversation happening next to you. You become the audience. This act of observation does something amazing. It shrinks your own self-consciousness. By focusing on the world outside, the world inside gets quieter. The imagined spotlight on you begins to dim. It loses its power when it's not fueled by your constant attention. Consider the transparency illusion, a related idea. This is the tendency to overestimate how much your personal mental state is known by others. You feel anxious, so you believe you must look anxious. You feel you are faking it, so you assume everyone can see you are an imposter. But our internal states are surprisingly opaque. Most people cannot read your mind. They cannot see the rapid heartbeat or the swirl of self-doubt you're experiencing. What feels like a crystal-clear window to you is, to others, more like a frosted glass. They only see a vague outline. This realization is incredibly freeing. It means you have permission to be imperfect. You can stumble over a word, spill a little coffee, or have a moment of uncertainty. These are not character-defining failures being broadcast to the world. They are just small human moments, largely unnoticed. The final step is to gather real-world evidence. The next time you feel the Acorn effect, run a small experiment. After you make a mistake you think everyone noticed, ask a trusted friend about it later. Ask them if they saw it. More often than not, they will have no idea what you are talking about. The real danger of this effect isn't just the brief feeling of embarrassment. It's the silent theft of opportunity. Every great idea that goes unsaid in a meeting, every clarifying question that isn't asked, every potential connection that isn't made. These are the true costs. It's a hidden tax on your potential, and it's paid in silence and regret. This happens because your brain has a limited budget of attention. When a huge portion of that budget is spent running the constant, anxious simulation of what other people might be thinking, there is very little left over for actual thinking. There's less mental energy for creativity, for deep analysis, or for simply being present with another person. Zoom out to a team trying to solve a hard problem. The Acorn effect can create a toxic silence. One person's fear of looking foolish can infect the room, causing others to hold back their own "maybe it's a dumb question" ideas. The entire group's collective intelligence shrinks because the perceived social risk feels bigger than the potential reward of a breakthrough. Internally, this feels like a physical weight. It's a tightening in your chest, a mental fog that clouds your best thoughts. The internal narrator, the one obsessed with self-protection, screams warnings about all the ways you could fail. This loud, fearful voice easily drowns out the quiet, curious whisper that wants to explore and learn. The way out of this trap isn't to try and argue with the feeling or to simply tell yourself not to care. The most effective strategy is to redirect the spotlight. Instead of feeling its heat on you, you consciously turn it and point it outward. You focus it on the problem to be solved, on the person you're talking to, or on the shared goal of the group. When this shift in focus happens, the power of the Acorn effect begins to dissolve almost instantly. The mental resources that were tied up in self-monitoring are suddenly freed. This energy becomes available for active listening, for generating new ideas, and for making a real contribution. The fear of judgment is replaced by the engagement of the task itself. You can see this difference clearly in any social setting. The person trapped by the effect is stuck in their own head, rehearsing their next sentence and analyzing their every move. But the person who has shifted their focus outward is simply present. They are genuinely listening, driven by curiosity about the other person, not by anxiety about themselves. This is the core of moving from a performance mindset to a contribution mindset. A performance mindset is all about how you are perceived. It is fragile and defensive. A contribution mindset is about what you can add to the situation. It is resilient, generous, and focused on shared success. Practicing this shift, even in small moments, begins to build new mental habits. Every time you consciously choose to focus on contributing rather than performing, you weaken the old, anxious neural pathways. You are actively building a new, stronger pathway based on purpose and connection. Over time, your inner world transforms. It changes from a tense courtroom, where you are the defendant on trial, into a creative workshop. It becomes a space for building, for tinkering, for collaborating, and for solving interesting puzzles. The imaginary judgmental audience fades into the background, replaced by the quiet, satisfying hum of meaningful work.